"My mother's moving in," Mark announced, dragging two oversized suitcases through the front door. "And you're paying for her care." The words hit harder than the raise I'd just gotten that morning. I blinked at him. "Excuse me." Behind him, Linda appeared. My mother-in-law. Dressed in a silk blouse, hair freshly blown out, lips painted too bright for someone who'd supposedly just survived a stroke. She waved a piece of paper at me like a victory flag. "Doctor's note. Says I had an ischemic episode. I can't live alone anymore. I need care." My jaw tightened. That's convenient. Just 12 hours before, I'd been sitting in my boss's office, glowing. "Congratulations, Brooke," he said. "You're moving up to senior analyst. That's $7,500 a month, effective immediately." I called Mark first. He'd sounded flat. "Wow. Great. We'll celebrate tonight." No balloons. No champagne. Just a text, "Dinner later?" Now here he was, with his mother and her luggage. Linda dropped the paper onto the kitchen counter, right next to the unopened bottle of wine I'd been saving. Mark's voice hardened. "Mom can't cook. She can't drive. She can barely walk. She's staying here, Brooke. And with your new salary," he gestured at me like I was a walking ATM, "you'll cover her treatment." Treatment? I lifted the paper. The doctor's handwriting looked suspiciously uniform, almost like it had been printed from a template. No signature stamp. No hospital logo. Linda lowered herself into a chair, sighing dramatically. "I get dizzy spells. Sometimes I forget things." The doctor said stress could kill me. She pressed a hand to her chest, eyes darting to the wine. "And I'm so stressed." "Funny," I said. "You didn't look dizzy hauling those suitcases up the porch." Her lips curled. "Adrenaline. You wouldn't understand." I turned to Mark. "Why am I hearing about this now? Why wasn't I part of the decision?" "Because there wasn't a decision," he shot back. "It's what's happening." "You're not being fair, Brooke. She's family." I bit down on my tongue. Family. The word Mark only used when it was convenient. Linda leaned in, her perfume heavy, cloying. "I raised a good son. He knows when to take responsibility. Maybe you should learn from him." I laughed once sharp. Responsibility? Or manipulation? Her eyes narrowed. Mark slammed his palm against the counter. "Enough. Mom's staying. End of story." I picked up the doctor's note again, scanning the lines. Where exactly was this written? It doesn't say hospital. Doesn't even have an address. Linda coughed weakly. "A specialist. Private practice. Very exclusive. And you just happened to get diagnosed today? The same day I got my raise." Her cough disappeared. She smiled thinly. Life works in mysterious ways. That night, when they'd gone to bed, I pulled the paper back out. My gut screamed. Something was wrong. At the bottom, a phone number was scrawled in neat blue ink. I dialed it from my backup phone, the one Mark didn't know about. A man answered. "Westbridge Auto Repair," he said. I stared at the note, heart hammering. Auto repair. Not a clinic. Not a doctor. They thought they could plant her in my house, forge medical records, and chain me to the bill. I folded the paper carefully, slid it into a folder, and whispered to myself. Game on. The next morning, Linda sat at the kitchen table in her robe, flipping through glossy magazines like she was on vacation, not recovering from a stroke. Mark slid a stack of envelopes toward me. Bills came. "Can you handle them? You're better with numbers." I opened the first one. My stomach clenched. Westbridge Neurological Institute, patient, Linda Harris, responsible party, Brooke Miller. Amount due, $1,200. Recurring monthly charge. I froze. "Mark, what is this?" "Her treatment plan," he said casually, pouring himself coffee. "They put you down as guarantor. You earn more, it makes sense." I snapped my head toward him. "I never signed this." Linda sighed theatrically. It was all such a blur at the doctor's office. Papers everywhere. "I must have written your name without thinking. Stroke patients get confused, you know." I narrowed my eyes. "Funny how your hand wasn't shaking when you signed my name." I shut myself in the bedroom with my laptop, typing the clinic's name into Google. A sleek website popped up, stock photos of doctors in white coats, smiling patients, walls of testimonials. But when I tried to click our team, page not found. Contact us? Just one number. I dialed. A cheery female voice answered. Westbridge Neurological Institute. How can I direct your call? Hi, I said. I'm verifying billing for patient Linda Harris. Pause. Paper shuffling. Then, hold, please. I waited. Another voice came on, deeper, unsteady. Billing department. This is Brooke Miller. Why am I listed as guarantor? I never signed. The line crackled. That's standard procedure. Family responsibility. Payment already processed. I frowned. Processed to which account? Silence. Then, click. They hung up. Heart pounding, I called my bank. After a maze of holds and transfers, a clerk finally answered. This is David, Wells Fargo. I explained the situation. He typed furiously. Yeah. I see a new recurring debit set up yesterday. Merchant ID flagged as Westbridge. Flagged. I repeated. Not our first complaint, he admitted. Looks like a shell vendor. We'll open a fraud case, but charges may post until it's resolved. My throat tightened. And in the meantime, he lowered his voice. Freeze your joint account. Today. I went back to the kitchen, tossing the envelope onto the table. Did you know this clinic doesn't exist? I asked Linda. Her smile was syrupy sweet. Oh, it exists. Just, very exclusive. Exclusive? I spat. Their phone number routes to a P.O. box and a disconnected line. Their billing department hung up on me. Mark scowled. You're overreacting. No, I shot back. You're being scammed. Or I leaned closer, my voice dropping, you're in on it. The silence that followed was sharp, electric. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled deeper into search results. Finally, page 6 of Google, a forum post. Beware of Westbridge Institute. Fake clinic. Used for eldercare scams. Charges in relatives' names. Dozens of replies. Victims. Lost money. And one comment that made my blood run cold. They target people with recent financial changes. Promotions. Inheritances. Divorce settlements. Somehow, they always know. The next day, I marched into the insurance office listed on Linda's paperwork. A woman in a blazer greeted me. How can I help? I slapped the forms onto her desk. Explain these. She scanned them, her brow furrowing. These are unusual. Provider numbers invalid. This policy isn't in our system. It's not ours. Then how are they billing me? She leaned in. Because someone is routing payments through your insurance account. They must have your social security and employer ID. I felt dizzy. That's impossible. Unless someone close to you filled it out. I knew exactly who she meant. When I got home, Linda was sprawled on the couch watching reality TV, a glass of wine in her weak hand. You're drinking? I asked flatly. She smiled without shame. Doctor says it's good for the heart. I yanked the remote from her lap. That doctor doesn't exist. Her eyes flicked to Mark, who appeared in the doorway. Brooke, he warned. I stared at both of them, my chest heaving. $1,200 a month. My name, my credit, and a fake hospital. This isn't care. It's theft. Linda's voice went cold. You think you're so smart with your little spreadsheets. But you don't understand family. In this house, you either contribute or you're the problem. Mark's jaw tightened. He didn't defend me. He didn't say a word. I locked myself in the bedroom again, hands trembling as I hid the documents in a separate folder. They thought they could bury me under fake medical bills. They didn't realize I'd already started digging. The pounding on the front door rattled the glass. Police. Open up. My stomach clenched. Police? Here? Mark rushed past me, yanking the door open. 2 officers stood outside, hands already on their belts, faces set like stone. Thank you for coming, Mark said quickly, his voice dripping with concern. It's my mother. She isn't safe here. My wife refuses to care for her properly. I'm afraid she could die. I froze. What did you just? But then I saw her. Linda. Lying on the couch, pale makeup smeared across her cheeks, a blanket pulled up to her chin. A bulky oxygen mask strapped to her face, the silver tank sitting proudly beside her like a stage prop. The valve was closed. Not a single hiss of air. Her eyelids fluttered open. "Officers," she whispered hoarsely, "please, help me. She leaves me alone for hours. I go hungry. I can't bathe. I'm so weak." The taller officer crouched down beside her, sympathy already written across his face. "How long has this been happening, ma'am?" "Since I moved in," Linda whimpered. "She hates me. Sometimes. I think she wants me gone forever." Mark clenched his fists for effect. I begged her to show some compassion. "She just doesn't care." "Stop," I snapped. My hands shook, but my voice was clear. "This is a performance. That tank isn't even turned on." The officer checked the gauge, then looked at me unimpressed. "Even if the valve's off, it's clear she's struggling. Why wouldn't you help her?" "Because she doesn't need help," I nearly shouted. "She was drinking wine last night. She can walk perfectly fine when she thinks nobody's looking." Linda coughed under the mask, loud and theatrical. "She calls me a liar. Can you imagine? I survived a stroke, and she mocks me." The second officer turned toward me, his voice stern. "Ma'am, this is serious. Elder neglect can lead to felony charges. Adult Protective Services could get involved." I froze. My chest heaved. "You don't understand." "No," he interrupted firmly. "We understand perfectly. People in your situation always minimize. But we take reports like this seriously. Next time, we might not be so forgiving." And then came the final blow. The front door opened again. A familiar voice. "What's going on here?" It was Mrs. Peterson. Our neighbor. Retired schoolteacher, always gossiping on her porch. She peered in with wide eyes at the scene, Linda on the couch, the oxygen mask, the police taking notes. "I knew something was off," she said, shaking her head. Her eyes landed on me, sharp with judgment. "Brooke, I thought you were a good girl. How could you treat her this way?" My heart sank. "Mrs. Peterson, it's not like that." But she cut me off, her face hard. "Everyone talks about how cold you are." I didn't believe it. Now I see it with my own eyes. The taller officer straightened, nodding. "We'll be filing a report. Consider this your warning, ma'am." The room spun. My throat burned. I wanted to scream, to rip the mask off Linda's face and show them the empty tank, but I knew how it would look, me attacking a helpless old woman in front of witnesses. The officers closed their notebooks. "Step up, Mrs. Miller. Or next time, we won't just be talking." They left. Mrs. Peterson lingered just long enough to give me one last look of disgust before muttering, "Poor Linda. God bless her," and shuffling away. The door shut. Silence pressed down on me. Then Linda ripped the mask off, tossing it aside. A smirk spread across her face, slow and triumphant. "Well," she purred, "at least someone believes me." Mark folded his arms, his eyes cold. "You heard them. This was your warning. You'd better change, Brooke." I stood frozen, shame boiling in my veins. Linda leaned back into the cushions, her voice dripping with delight. "Did you see their faces when they scolded you? When the neighbor called you heartless? Oh, Brooke, you looked so small. Next time, I'll make sure they haul you out in cuffs." Her laughter followed me down the hallway, sharp and cruel, each note echoing in my chest long after I locked the bedroom door. "My mother just offered me a sleeping pill in a wine glass," I said into the phone so quietly Claire had to lean in to hear. "Bring it to me." "Don't tell Mark," she replied without hesitation. "My cousin Jamal works nights at a clinical lab. He'll take a look." I hung up, my hand still holding the little travel bottle I'd tucked into my bag the night Linda poured wine for me. The liquid inside looked like Cabernet but moved like syrup, heavier than it should be. I'd kept it because my gut had screamed fraud the moment I smelled that chemical tang. Tonight, that gut felt like survival. Mark was asleep upstairs. The house was a weird gallery of normal things, photos, a blinking router, a stack of unpaid bills, stitched over the larger lie that had moved in with us. Linda was in the living room, humming through the TV, the oxygen tank standing like a silent trophy beside her. I fixed my face into something unreadable, slipped on my coat, and walked out the door with the bottle in my wrist pocket. Claire lived 2 blocks away. She opened the door in pajama pants and a hoodie, eyes wide and tired. "You look like someone swapped your blood for vinegar," she said. "No lecturing, no pity. Just a steady hand." "I didn't bring it to the doctor," I said. "If Jamal can confirm what I think," my voice broke. "They plan to drug me. Make me incapable. File for guardianship." Claire's mouth flattened. "We don't have a lot of time. Jamal's night shift ends in 5. Let's go." The lab was the kind of place that smells like bleach and midnight. Jamal met us at the back door, a thin man with quick eyes and a lanyard that meant authority and a loyalty I'd never earned. He took the bottle with gloved hands and didn't ask how I'd gotten it. He just looked at the label and at me, and the expression on his face said he already understood the stakes. "This could be anything," he warned as he slid the sample under a hood. "We run screens for benzodiazepines, opiates, barbiturates. If it's a sedative, we'll see metabolites. But chain of custody, if you want this to hold up later, it has to be logged properly." He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like someone who knew courtrooms and evidence and how fragile a woman's word could be when stacked against 2 smiling liars. "I know," I said. "Just tell me, Jamal. Is there something in it that would knock me out for hours?" He didn't answer right away. He swabbed, ran a small centrifuge, typed numbers into a square of light. I watched the screen like a jury waiting for a verdict. A lab tech can be an oracle or a menace. Jamal was both. "There's a benzodiazepine present," he said finally. "High concentration. This is consistent with a sedative enough to cause heavy sedation if someone drank a full glass." He tapped the keyboard. "Diazepam-like signature. Potent." My knees went liquid. I pictured Mark's easy smile, Linda's practiced cough. I imagined a judge hearing the phrase sedative in her wine and rolling his eyes at a wife desperate for revenge. Evidence had to be ironclad. "Can you put it in a formal report?" I asked, the words barely out. "Signed? Time-stamped?" Jamal hesitated. "I can run the confirmatory tests and print a report under my lab's letterhead. But for legal admissibility, you'll need documented custody. I can do an internal note, discreetly, but official labs have protocols. If you want it to count in court, we should involve an attorney before it goes public. Or we can covertly collect more, med bottles, pills she's taking." His eyes flicked to Claire. "If you plan on doing this right, don't move anything yourself. We'll help." Quietly. Claire's hand found mine, squeezing once. "We'll start the paperwork tomorrow," she said. "Tonight we confirm. Tomorrow we bring a lawyer." I wanted to scream, to punch the hood of the machine, to drag Mark downstairs and demand answers. Instead, I breathed and forced my gratitude into a tight smile. "Thank you. Whatever it costs." "You can pay me in coffee," Jamal said, and the humor cut through the panic for a sliver of a second. Then he closed the hood and ran the confirmatory gas chromatograph. The machine hummed like a small, efficient beast. Numbers blinked. Peaks resolved. Jamal's face grew colder. "There's more," he said. He printed a page, tore it carefully, and folded it into his palm like a loaded card. "This isn't just a one-off. There are metabolites here that suggest repeated exposure. Not just a single dose." My head snapped up. "Repeated?" He nodded. "Either the patient has been given this drug multiple times, or the source is concentrated. If they plan to spike you, they'd likely test the dose on her first. See how she responds." A dozen tiny betrayals aligned in my mind. The sudden diagnosis the day of my raise, the fake clinic, the oxygen tank, the recurring billing. Guardianship meant control over my finances, my freedom, my name. Mark and Linda had the motive. Now, finally, I had the thread. "We need to be careful," Jamal warned. "If you go to the police with this, you must do it with a lawyer. If Mark and Linda get wind that you've had the wine tested, they'll destroy evidence, clean the house, throw away pills. They'll accuse you of planting evidence. These things go sideways fast." That was the other twist. Truth in our world never rescued you by itself. It needed translation by sober officials, stamped copies, witnesses who couldn't be bought by family dinners and perfumed sighs. I left the lab with a folded printout in my pocket, an official-looking slip that said more than any argument ever could: benzodiazepine detected, repeated exposure suspected. Claire walked me home in the dark, the neighborhood quiet and small around us. The porch light at our house was off. Inside, Linda's laugh filtered through the walls like someone dedicated to villainy. When I turned my key in the lock, I felt both lighter and more hunted than I had that morning when I'd celebrated a raise. Evidence was a small, sharp weapon. It could cut or it could break. I had it now, but how to make it stick, how to turn a lab slip into a shield, was something I had yet to learn. Upstairs, Mark's silhouette darkened his bedroom window for a heartbeat, then disappeared. On the couch, Linda's TV muffled a laugh. The oxygen tank gleamed in the lamp light like a dollar sign. I slid the paper under my pillow and whispered into the dark, "Okay. Now we play chess." The branch smelled like floor polish and paper. Too clean, too bright, too ordinary for the kind of betrayal I was about to step into. I sat across from a young clerk in a gray suit, his name tag reading Ethan. He smiled with professional courtesy, tapping on his keyboard. "So, Brooke, you said there was an issue with your account?" "Yes." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "My paycheck didn't hit last Friday. I checked online, but the login said the account was closed." Ethan frowned. His fingers flew faster. "That's strange. Let me take a look." His brow furrowed as he scrolled. Then, slowly, his eyes flicked up to me, nervous. "It says here, the joint account you share with your husband has been marked for closure." My stomach dropped. "Closure? I didn't authorize that." "Application was filed 2 weeks ago," Ethan said carefully. "All funds scheduled for transfer." "To where?" I demanded. He hesitated. His screen reflected in his glasses, and for a second I saw the words before he tried to tilt it away. Olive Man Holdings Ltd. An offshore account. In Linda's name. I gripped the edge of the desk. "That's fraud. I never signed anything." Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. "Ma'am, your signature is here." He turned the monitor. A scanned PDF glowed on the screen. My name. My handwriting, or close enough to fool a bank. A surge of nausea hit me. "That's not mine. That's forged." Ethan lowered his voice. "You need to understand something. In the system, it doesn't look forged. It looks valid. And once the closure goes through, reversing an international wire," he shook his head. "It's like pulling water back into the faucet." I leaned in, desperate. "Then stop it. Right now. Flag it. Freeze it." He bit his lip, glanced around the empty cubicles. Then he leaned closer. "You didn't hear this from me, but someone already placed a note on your profile. That's why things aren't lining up." "What note?" His whisper was barely audible. "You've been marked as deceased." The air left my lungs. "What?" "In the system. Deceased account. Which means your husband provided either a death certificate or equivalent paperwork. That's why the closure was fast-tracked." I shook my head violently. "I'm standing right here." "I know," Ethan said. His hands trembled. "But on paper, you're dead." I forced myself to breathe, to keep my voice level. "Who submitted it?" He hesitated again. "Name on the file says Mark Miller. Witness signature. Linda Harris." "Of course." Husband and mother-in-law. Partners in crime. The bile rose in my throat. They hadn't just wanted to drain me. They wanted to erase me. "Ethan," I whispered, gripping the edge of his desk so hard my knuckles whitened. "If I walk out of here and pretend this conversation never happened, in 48 hours all my money is gone. Everything I've worked for. And on paper, I don't exist. Do you understand?" He swallowed hard. "I shouldn't even be telling you this. If my manager knew." "Please," I cut in. "I don't need rules right now. I need an ally." Something flickered across his face. Maybe pity. Maybe anger. He printed a sheet, slid it under the desk toward me, half hidden beneath a brochure about mortgage loans. It was a transaction summary. Pending transfer, $128,000. Beneficiary, Olive Man Holdings Ltd., initiated by Mark Miller. Witness, Linda Harris. Status, processing. I stared at the numbers, my pulse thundering in my ears. "How long do I have?" I asked. 3 business days before the transfer posts," Ethan said. "But with a deceased flag, sometimes it clears faster." He paused, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you want to fight this, you need legal intervention. Not bank paperwork. A court order. A bitter laugh escaped me. Funny. They're trying to put me under guardianship as incompetent, and now the bank thinks I'm dead. What do I fight first, being erased or being imprisoned in my own life? Ethan didn't answer. He slid his card across the desk. Call me tonight. I'll stall this as long as I can. But Brooke, be careful. If they went this far, it's not just about money anymore. When I walked out of the branch, the sun felt wrong. Too bright, too warm for the fact that, on paper, I no longer existed. At home, Linda was on the porch sipping iced tea, her robe flapping in the breeze. She looked me up and down, her smile slow and deliberate. Rough day at the bank, she asked, voice sweet as poison. I didn't answer. She leaned closer, her perfume cloying. Don't worry, dear. Some things are easier if you just stop fighting. Her eyes glittered like she'd already buried me. And in the eyes of the system, she had. The dining room looked like something out of a catalog, linen napkins, candles flickering, a roast chicken that Mark claimed was family style. But the tension under the air was thick enough to choke on. Linda sat at the head of the table, regal in her pearls, her oxygen tank pushed conspicuously to the side like a stage prop. She lifted her wine glass delicately. A toast, she said, smiling. To Brooke. Finally ready to do what's right for the family. Mark nodded, his eyes sharp on me. This is the right choice. We can finally put all the fighting behind us. I smiled, small and tight. Yes. Tonight, no fighting. In front of me sat a thick folder of documents. Legal-looking, neatly tabbed. Guardianship papers. Transfer agreements. And at the very back, a deed of trust with my signature already forged on the dotted line. Go on, Linda urged, her voice sugar-sweet. Just sign where we marked. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the page. Inside, my heart was pounding so loud I thought it might echo through the walls. I forced myself to take a slow sip of wine, keeping my face neutral. You know, I said lightly, when I first heard you wanted guardianship, I was offended. But then I thought, maybe you're right. Maybe I should stop fighting. Relief washed over Mark's face. His shoulders sagged. Linda clapped her hands together, delighted. Oh, Brooke, darling, she cooed. You'll see how much easier life is when you let someone else take the burden. I signed my name in a looping scrawl at the bottom of the page. The ink glistened under the chandelier. Mark exhaled. Finally, Linda raised her glass again. To new beginnings. I set the pen down carefully, then reached for the small remote hidden beneath my napkin. I pressed the button. The dining room wall flickered to life. A projector hummed softly, casting shaky handheld footage across the wallpaper. Linda froze, her glass halfway to her lips. On screen, she appeared in bright supermarket lighting, no robe, no oxygen tank. Just Linda, laughing, pushing a cart loaded with champagne bottles and shopping bags. She grabbed a case of wine, lifted it with ease, and set it into the cart without so much as a wince. Her voice rang clear, captured perfectly on the hidden camera. Well, so much for that stroke. For this kind of money, I'd ride around in a wheelchair just for fun. The silence around the table was electric. Mark's fork clattered onto his plate. What is this? Linda's face drained of color. That's not me. That's edited. Some trick. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. Funny, Linda. It looks like you. It sounds like you. And that's the timestamp from last Thursday. The same day you told the police you couldn't stand on your own 2 feet. Mark stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. Brooke, turn that off. I shook my head. No. Let's all enjoy the show. The footage continued, Linda laughing with the cashier, swiping her credit card, loading her own bags into the trunk of her car. Not a hint of weakness. Not a hint of pain. Linda slammed her glass down. You little snake. You set me up. I tilted my head. No, Linda. You set yourself up. I just bought the popcorn. Mark ran a hand through his hair, panic rising in his eyes. You don't understand, Brooke. We were only trying to. To what? I cut him off sharply. Drug me? Erase me from the bank system? Steal everything I own while parading around in pearls, pretending you're dying. The projector hummed louder, filling the silence with Linda's recorded laughter. I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. You wanted guardianship? Congratulations. Now the whole world will see who really needs supervision. Linda shot up from her chair, pointing a shaking finger at me. You'll regret this. You don't know who you're dealing with. Mark grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back down, but she yanked free, fury etched across her face. You think you've won? She hissed. This isn't over. I picked up the signed paper, the one she thought would hand her my life. Then I tore it neatly in half, piece by piece, until only scraps lay scattered across the tablecloth. Actually, I said, smiling coldly, it is. The knock on the door wasn't a knock at all. It was a thunderclap. The door burst open, splintering against the wall, and suddenly the living room was full of uniforms. Federal agents. IRS. Step back. Linda screamed and dropped to the floor instantly, clutching her chest like a soap opera actress. My heart. Oh Lord, my heart. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, but when they checked her vitals, one of them barked out a laugh. Pulse strong. Pressure like a 20-year-old athlete. Nice try, lady. Linda's eyes snapped open. It's anxiety. She shrieked. She's trying to kill me. The taller agent ignored her, holding up a folder thick with paperwork. Linda Harris, you're under investigation for federal tax evasion, fraudulent medical claims, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. Mark exploded, red-faced and sweating. This is insane. She set us up. Brooke, tell them this is a mistake. I swirled the wine in my glass, the deep red catching the light like blood. No mistake, Mark. Just the truth. I handed them everything myself. He froze. You? What? The fake clinic invoices. The forged bank forms. The video of Linda sprinting through the supermarket like an Olympic athlete. Oh, and the little side business you two forgot to declare to the IRS. Mark's face drained of color. You don't understand. If this sticks, we lose everything. I sipped my wine slowly. Correction. You lose everything. I already separated my finances. My income is mine alone. I'm untouchable. Linda thrashed on the carpet, still clinging to her performance. You can't do this to me. I'm a sick woman. I had a stroke. The paramedic smirked, snapping his gloves off. Lady, if you had a stroke, then I'm the Queen of England. You're healthier than I am. The room erupted in chaos, Mark yelling, Linda wailing, agents reading out rights and listing charges. And me? I just sat calmly at the dining table, watching it unfold like a play I'd already memorized. One agent cuffed Mark, forcing his arms behind his back. He shouted, spit flying. Brooke, you'll regret this. You think you won, but you don't know how the system works. I leaned back in my chair, voice quiet but razor-sharp. No, Mark. You don't know how I work. Linda was dragged to her feet, kicking, her pearls clattering against the floor. I'll ruin you, she screeched. You'll never escape me. I raised my glass in her direction. Funny. Took me 3 minutes. She froze. What? I smiled thinly. 3 minutes to cure you. I just cut off your access to my money. The agents hauled them both out, their voices still echoing down the hall. The house fell silent for the first time in weeks.